2012, I managed to read all 3 Hunger Games books before the first film came out. And in 2012, I think I was about 10. I was in like year 6 in primary school. And I figure I must have read them over the summer. And, you know, I was a bit out of the age demographic for them at the time. And if you think 15-year-olds have bad opinions, then I was literally 10 years old. I was a child and I devoured the books, became obsessed with them, and watched all the films as they came out. And, you know, I decided, I've been trying to get back into reading recently, and I reread all 3 of them, and then I bought it's not the sequel, it's a prequel, and I read that as well because the film's coming out, and I thought I might as well do that. And oh yeah, this is my amazing notebook that I've put my notes in, and you know, just seeing like the difference in my opinions and like what I thought of things. So I guess first things first, I guess I'll talk about my opinions on I guess I'll start out with possibly my biggest opinion change since I was 10 years old. I'm now 21, so it's been a while. When I first read The Hunger Games, I was very much Team Gale. Yeah, exactly. I don't exactly know what was going on, but like probably because there were like 2 boys in my school year. One of them had blonde hair and one of them had brown hair, and I had a crush on the one with the brown hair, so like anyway, I thought Gale was pretty you know, he was like strong and Peter was all not like, I don't know, I don't really understand it. But when I rewatched the films, I forced my boyfriend to rewatch the entire watch the entire, I would say trilogy, but they turned it into 4 films for some reason. I watched all of that with him, and I'm just like, Peter. Basically, I've changed a lot in the past 10 years in terms of my taste in men, and I think my opinions now are a lot better. However, I know most people like are Team Gale haters. Like they hate Gale. I do not hate Gale. I think he's a character. Katniss and Gale sort of like, they handle like, I want to say trauma and grief and everything very differently. Gale becomes very angry as a result. He wants revenge. He becomes very angry as a result of the trauma, whereas Katniss is, you know, Katniss sort of like, I don't know, like goes into herself a bit more. Her and Peter can relate to each other a lot more because she wasn't there to see like 12 get destroyed. She saw the out, and it affects them in like completely different ways. So I can't really like hate him because I can sort of understand where he's coming from, and it's wrong, but at the same time I'm not going to say like he's like an irredeemable, like at the end of the day he thought he was good. I don't know. Like, he's not as bad as everyone was sort of making him out to be. I mean, it was his idea for the bomb, I guess. It was his idea for the bomb, but I don't think he knew that it was going to be used and that it would kill Prim. Mainly because he shouts at Katniss to like shoot him, to kill him when he gets captured, and then like a couple of moments later like the bombs go off and things like that. If he knew the bombs were going to go off, why would he like want to die? I don't know. So that's like weird. So it's very hot in here, and like my thoughts are not thoughting. But yeah, very much Team Peter, but like I'm not quite a Gale hater. Him and Katniss are just fundamentally incompatible. That's the whole. And also, I thought like the love triangle, maybe when I was younger, was stupid or whatever, because I was not like other girls. And like, I've talked to other people who've watched or read the Hunger Games, like one of my co-workers and my mum, and they love the first film, but then after it they're like, oh, I don't really care. But actually, like, the whole, like, I'm talking to my co-worker, and obviously a completely different demographic, because that's what you expect with co-workers. They're always like 10 years older than you. About how, like, oh, the love triangle, thing is, like, it is not really pointless. It does show like Katniss is in a conflict of like revenge versus healing. It's the whole point of the story, is basically revenge versus healing. That is kind of anger versus peace, hate versus love, I don't know, that kind of thing. And I mean, I don't have my copy of the book right now because we had to take everything out by the bookcase because we're having some work done. So it's all in boxes, and I cannot be asked to dig through them to find the book. But like, one of the very like last lines of the book is basically saying like she didn't need Gale's anger, she needed Peter's peace and love and calmness or whatever. And that's basically the whole damn point of the series, is trying to break the cycle of revenge, of they did this, therefore we should kill all their children. They killed all our children, therefore we should kill all their children. Then Katniss and the victors and like the little basically the middle group, the people who are not District 13 aligned, who are not Capital aligned, Katniss, Peter, the victors, they're sort of like, hey, what if we just stop killing each other and actually work towards peace? Because otherwise we're just going to end up in an endless cycle of they killed my kids, so we're going to kill their kids. They killed, you know, we had a war, so we're going to have a war back at them. Like, you have to break the cycle, or it's just going to continue and continue. And that's basically the point of the Hunger Games, I guess. Also, I saw on Twitter people saying, oh, the movies made the love triangle like so much of a bigger thing than it was in the books. And I have to disagree with that. In the books, like in the films, you don't have to listen to Katniss's inner monologue about whether she should run away with Gale or not every 2 seconds. Which is a valid thing, and it's very much tied to her mental state and what's happened to her recently. Whether she's, you know, had her family threatened or not. Whether it, you know, it's not done for the sake of it. It very much ties into the narrative very cleverly about whether or not she is safe, whether or not she has freedom to choose who she loves and what she wants out of life. And yet in the book, especially in Mockingjay, she has a lot of her and Gale have a bit of like, you know, a back and forth of will they, won't they, and then she sort of comes to the conclusion that they have been through so much, the world has changed so much, that the Gale and Katniss that were in the woods together are no longer the same people. They have been through too many different things, their opinions are too vastly different after what they've been through, and they can no longer understand each other, and their trust breaks down. And she sort of wonders to herself, if we had got married, would I have ended up hating him anyway? Would we have grown to dislike each other? Regardless, like, it's very interesting. And I guess it sort of ties into sort of loving people at their best versus loving them at their worst, because like, I guess they're both at their best when they're in the woods, I guess. Peaceful, doing their best, being their, you know, best selves, you know, protecting their families, living a calm life to the best of their ability. And then they go through a traumatic event, several traumatic events, and they both handle it in completely different ways. And basically, Dale becomes very angry, Katniss gets PTSD, and they sort of no longer, they can't love each other at their worsts. However, Peter and Katniss, they see, like, Peter is literally, he has to like learn to like re-love Katniss because he is made to see her in the worst light, and Katniss sees Peter in the worst light because he literally tries to kill her. and they somehow learn to love each other again despite all that. So it's very much, you know, they have the ability to love each other at their worst, in sickness and in health, literally, which is interesting. And I do very much like the whole love isn't fate, love is a choice. You choose to love someone rather than you are fated to be with them. Woo! It's like, no, love isn't like that. You do. It's a conscious decision. You choose to love and to continue loving, because you can't rely on puppy love, woo, feelings forever. And once again, that sort of, you know, it's reality versus expectations of the images of what Gale expects Katniss to be, and then their sort of clash of opinions of realising that the expectations that they had of each other to understand and have each other's back no longer apply, and the reality of their existence, of their relationship, of the situation, it's just ruined their bond, their relationship. I was kind of sad. They had like a nice little relationship, and if Katniss had never gone in the Hunger Games, they probably would have got married. Would they have been happy? That's a question, you know, Katniss asked herself. Probably not. They probably would have somehow at some point ended up clashing. I also wanted to talk about the writing in the Hunger Games. It is incredibly, like, I read this book for the first time, or these 3 books, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, back in 2012. And I still remembered some of the lines in there. And so it's like, it's stuck in my brain, it's very memorable, some of the lines. And I was honestly surprised at how well I remembered something I had read, you know, 10 plus years ago. But I did! I remembered it really well. I have to say, like, I zoomed through those books. I don't know whether I read them faster or not as fast as I did when I was 10, because I was a quick reader then too. Like, the way it is written, it is very, even the font on the page, at least on the old, like the 2012 editions I have there, it's quite big. It's very easy to read, you can zoom through it, very quick paced, very good writing. And, you know, it's very memorable for me to remember it. For some reason, the one line that would like stick in my mind for the past 10 years is like, whatever urine I could pass was dark brown. Which is about Katniss having dehydration. And I think the reason that stuck in my mind so much is because of that not being in the film too much. They sort of have to cut bits down, like, understandable. So speaking of films, I know people are like, oh no, the book is better, the film's better. I am team consume everything and get the full experience. Whether you prefer the manga, or the anime, the book, or the film, just consume everything. Enjoy it all as one, you know? So, book versus film debates are, yeah, just enjoy it. I think when I was 10, I didn't quite understand sort of like the progression of like the first Hunger Games book is a very short and sharp hook of, oh my god, battle royale to the death. Brilliant. However, like it sort of progresses into like political kind of drama, war and things like that, and I think a lot of people like complain about that. But I think now that I'm old enough and I've reread it, I can appreciate the later books more. But I would, if I just wanted something quick to read or something, I would probably just end up reading the first book over and over again, because it's sort of self-contained. If you know, almost self-contained, you could sort of pretend that everything was happy after that. The other books you can't quite, yeah. So I think, I don't want to start comparing it to Attack on Titan, but at the beginning of my notebook here, I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages of comparisons to Attack on Titan. because I love Attack on Titan. I have the whole manga right there. I might make a whole video just talking about things to compare the Hunger Games and Attack on Titan to. But one thing I will say is that Attack on Titan also has like this very quick, easy hook at the beginning in season 1 of humans versus titans. Woo! Got Battle Royale, humans versus titans, short, sharp hook, and then the story slowly progresses into a political drama, kind of war drama, and then people go, oh, what happened to this? When in reality that was like the whole point from the beginning. So it has that sort of like similar story progression of initial hook to deep political drama. And also, said political drama and said world building is there from the get-go, but the more that the character finds out about the world, the more progressively messed up it gets. Like Katniss in District 12, oh, that's quite messed up, but you know, it's simple conflict. Oh, the capital corruption, that's also more messed up. And then she goes to District 13, you think, oh right, this is great, there's people here, wow, oh, these people are also messed up and want to kill children too. And the only people that sort of understand like the whole of the conflict, both sides, in both series, the main characters are the only ones who are sane and reasonable, as they have seen things from most perspectives. That, for example, in the Hunger Games, the tributes are the only ones who can truly understand what the worst and the best looks like, and can see the humanity in both sides, in everyone. And they don't want to continue the cycle, they want to break the cycle of hatred and violence and killing children. Sorry, that is... Oh. And I guess that also ties into like... Sorry, this is just me just ranting about the Hunger Games for ages. But anyway, the Hunger Games is a very good series. The trilogy, very good. It stands up, brilliant. I can appreciate it so much more now that I'm older. Peter, Gale is Gale. Good for him, I guess. And I remember I used to find Katniss really annoying. And it honestly put me off reading anything in first person, because I hate seeing like the inner thoughts of Katniss. However, upon reading it again at the age of 20, 21, I can relate to her a hell of a lot more. I can understand her feelings, I don't think I had that sort of empathy and experience at the age of 10 to fully understand. Like now, I didn't find her remotely annoying. I found her relatable and understandable, and like her inner conflict was completely, you know, understandable. It made sense what she was thinking and how she was thinking, and I didn't want to think, oh, for Christ's sake, you're stupid. I didn't think that at all. I thought she was completely rational, and I just sort of changed my mind completely on her character. I don't know. First person, I feel like is quite a hard thing to write in. I know it's supposed to make them relatable, but if you have to make sure that your character isn't insufferable, and Katniss is definitely not insufferable. She is completely sane. She is fine. I do like her character. So that is, yeah. My opinions on all the characters basically did a whole flip-flop. Except Finnick is still amazing. Rip Finnick. Cries. So my hair isn't greasy, it is just wet. Anyway, I read the sequel, or prequel, and I really, really enjoyed it. However, I like a book reviewer that I am subscribed to on YouTube. Like, I just saw the thumbnail and calling it like a cash grab and that it didn't need to exist. And I'm not putting myself through watching like someone like hate on something that I enjoy. So all I want to say is I don't think it was pointless, and I don't think it was a cash grab. If Suzanne Collins wanted to make a cash grab, there are two other characters that are fan favourites that people wanted to see more of, that wanted to hear their stories, whether they needed to be told or not, which is Haymitch and Finnick. Haymitch's game story was told in Catching Fire, it was already told, so it didn't really need to exist. That would be something that didn't need to exist. But it also would be a cash grab, and people would eat it up. Same with Finnick. People would love to see more Finnick and Annie, or Finnick's games, or literally anything. People would have loved that. That, you know, once again, it would have been eaten up. But no, Suzanne Collins decided to write about a character that is probably the least liked, which is President Snow. Now, I can't pronounce his first name, so we're just going to call him Snow because that's all I can say. I gave up trying to pronounce his name. This is the curse of reading a lot as a child, is you never actually learn how to pronounce anything. You just kind of accept it. It just goes into your head. But yeah, I think it told a very interesting story about the early Hunger Games and how the world ended up the way that it was, which was like fascinating to me, and also how easy it was for the world in the Hunger Games to become, is it fascist? I'm presuming it's some kind of form of fascism or authoritarianism. How easy it was for it to get as messed up as it was. The whole idea for the Hunger Games was a joke. The idea for the Hunger Games was literally came from a drunken joke, and people were fucked up enough. People were messed up enough to just roll with it. It got into the hands of the wrong people, this joke, and people went with it. That's how, like, like it sort of like taps into like the how easy humans can be cruel. And I don't want to like make comparisons to like Nazi Germany, but like when people are desperate, they very quickly turn to like extremism. It can be very easy to just become extreme. And you find that a lot in pretty much every kind of fascist, authoritarian kind of regime, is that people were desperate, so they voted in these people who said they would fix everything, and said people, while they said they would fix everything, they also decided they were going to blame it on this minority or that minority, and yeah. That's how, oh, I really wish I was better with words. I don't have a script, I have my notes in a little Trolls book. Brilliant, I know. But yeah, like how easy it is like for people to accept cruelty when it's happening to people that aren't them. And we see that all the time in the news, all the time. Oh, all these people from this very poor country have just died, and everyone's like, yeah, don't care. Like, I'm sure there are people out there, I don't wanna, I'm sure there are people out there who, you know, have certain political opinions, who would, you know, be more than, you know, okay with a group of said minority having to fight each other to the death. They would be okay with that. Or they could very quickly become okay with that, because it's not them, is it? It's them, not us, you know? The us versus them thing. And I don't know, the fact that the whole games, like, nobody in the capital really cared about them. Nobody watched them. The districts didn't even watch them. They could have ended after 10 years. And they didn't, because people decided that, nah, let's just keep this going, haha. Like, no one understood, like, what they were supposed to achieve. It took people like Snow, for example, to come in and sort of realise what they were about, and that was about control. But nobody knew how to get them to work as control, because nobody watched them, nobody cared about them. It was just something that happened and nobody really cared. I don't know, I thought it was very interesting seeing how things developed. The betting, of course, people love betting. People will bet on everything. People were betting on whether that Titanic submarine was going to be found or not. People were betting on a lot. They will bet on literally anything. They will bet on human lives. So yeah, that was very understandable. But the fact, like, it's sort of so ironic and sick and funny, and that the games literally came from a joke. And society was desperate enough and cruel enough to just be like, yeah, you know what, that sounds like a reasonable idea, yeah. And then decided to keep it going for 75 years. So I guess, I don't know, it could be like, you know, commentary on how easily things can just descend into that kind of madness. If you have the wrong people in charge, if you listen to the wrong people, and if you are complacent with that kind of cruelty, if you allow that to keep happening. So I thought that was a very interesting story in Ballad. Also, like, the romance aspect in it, I really enjoyed it. It's weird because I was like rooting for them, but at the same time, it was like, I know this is going to end badly. I don't know how it's going to end badly, but it's going to end badly, and I'm not sure, like, so I sort of, I don't know. And I don't really know how it, like, I'm presuming she must have died of something. Whether he shot her, whether she died, maybe she was bitten by a snake, maybe she drowned, maybe she died of hypothermia in the rain. I don't know, but something happened. And I want to tie in a little bit with what I said about Gale and Katniss and sort of how they were compatible in the woods, but after the events of the games, they were no longer compatible because they had changed so fundamentally as people. With Snow and Lucy Gray, they are compatible only in that specific situation they were in when Snow had control and where she was not herself, she was just a tribute. I know someone said, oh, that she was like an empty character or something, flat character. But we are seeing it pretty much from Snow's perspective, and he kind of just projects anything that he wants onto her, and the whole thing kind of crumbles when he sees her in District 12 and gets to know her and her opinions and her own mind, and not just, you know, the power that he had to try and keep her alive. And sort of realise that, you know, she is a person of her own, she has her own thoughts, her own mind, and also that he can't trust her and she cannot trust him because, you know, their opinions are so vastly incompatible and different, and the trust, once again, like Gale and Katniss, it just breaks down. And, well, it's weird because Gale and Katniss, when their trust breaks down, it kind of breaks down into the not killing each other when they sort of agreed to kill each other. And then with Snow and Lucy Gray, it's like trust breaks down. He immediately thinks that she tried to kill him. He immediately tries to kill her. It's, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure like lots of girls, especially like autistic girls, like, you know, will relate to the stereotype of like manic pixie dream girls, and that's very much how Snow seems to see Lucy, as, oh wow, she is so colourful and pretty and alive and talented, and she sings and she's full of personality. Realise he puts on this like that he has all these like expectations and this idea of her that is just not her reality, which is very much the manic pixie dream girl thing, where in reality she is just another kid, another girl trying to survive. And it's interesting sort of like through the entire commentary, despite saying like, you know, he loved her, he had feelings for her, the whole time it is littered with bits of he can't trust her, or, oh god, what if she did resort to selling herself? How horrible, he can't, he like, it's full of little bits of like distrust and disgust through like the whole book. So it was very, I thought it was quite a sudden switch that he made, but it was very in character for him. Like, it was very in character for him, and also like this has been going on like the whole time, especially when he gets to District 12 and he meets her. He's like so happy to see her, and then he's sort of like, oh god, no, like her opinions are just, he can't control them. And so she has to die, and I guess so did, I don't know how to pronounce the other guy's name. Oh dear, I don't know how to pronounce anyone's name. Plinth. He, you know, the guy he said was like a brother that he ended up ratting out. Which is, I knew something was going to happen with him, but I just, you never know. Seeing how Snow kind of slowly goes from being perhaps just a man that's good with words, at pretending. You could sort of see it a bit like Peter in the Hunger Games interviews, where he's putting stuff on. You know, he's using charisma and his looks and things to lie his way, smooth talk his way into things happening, and then slowly over the course he becomes sort of his opinions sort of solidify and become very angry and control driven, self prioritizing. That's not the word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean. So he sort of morphs from like maybe something similar to Peter into something similar to Gale, where he's putting himself above other things, putting his anger above other things, and doesn't really care about what is actually good. Whatever, he's putting himself first. He becomes very selfish, and his love for Lucy Gray could not. It was very fragile. It shattered. Soon as the opportunity that he was not completely screwed, soon the opportunity to better himself in the world of the capital and get back into that came up, she was no longer needed. Anyway, I don't know, I thought it was very interesting to see sort of how his personality sort of developed, and how he went from, you know, somewhat having morals to eventually just looking out for himself and starting to kill people. He killed like 3 people, I think, in that book. Whether or not you count Lucy Gray as the 4th, we don't know what happened to her. And also, like, so obviously Katniss, through her dad, is related to Lucy Gray somehow, probably through her sister. Is that Maud Ivory? So that song, like the song's coming back, like Snow must have felt like Lucy Gray's ghost had just like popped up again, like his past was coming back to haunt him. I don't know, it was just kind of like karma for like betraying her and betraying others. I don't know. I must say the writing in Ballad was very good. Like, oh, it took me a little bit to get into it because the first chapter is perhaps a little bit slow, but once like him and Lucy Gray sort of meet, almost the end of like every single chapter ends with something like a cliffhanger, like, oh my god, he's been thrown into a cage with tributes. Oh my god, someone just slit someone's throat. Oh my god, she just got bitten by a snake. Oh my god, they're going into the arena. Like pretty much every single chapter was ending up on something incredibly exciting, and it made it incredibly hard. I think I read like 3/4 of it, the last 3/4 of the book, in like one day. Like, I just could not put that down. It was incredible. The plot twists in there are great, and I like how you can sort of pick out names and stuff. And also, from the book trailer and things, not book trailer, the film trailer, you can sort of see the 1950s kind of vibe coming in. And it gives you sort of an idea of like, when did all this happen in, you know, the Hunger Games world? And you think, oh, it must be, you know, sort of like the beginning of nuclear weapons. There must have been some disaster. Something happened, some war happened. And then the districts and Panem and everything was their solution to it. And they talk about free people in the north, and they're talking about, you know, is that District 13 or something? And I'm just thinking, is that Canada? But I don't know. We never really learn anything else about the world outside of Panem. Is there anyone else? I guess not. Which implies there was some kind of nuclear disaster. Who knows? Because they definitely have nuclear weapons, and if the aesthetic is set in like the 50s, I don't know, I like it. I like that kind of. It's cool. It's a cool aesthetic. I'm incredibly excited for the film. Casting looks great. I would say it is not a cash grab, and it has some very interesting lore in terms of how the Hunger Games ended up the way it was, and the characters very. I don't know what quite happened to Tigress, and how she ended up hating him so much, but I'm presuming. I mean, they already had like clashing opinions on things, and of course, Snow, he is very career driven. You know, he wants to get to the top. He wants to be president. Whereas Tigress is like, oh, it's okay. We'll just live in this little flat. It'll be fine. They like, he's what's the word? High achiever? No. Ambitious. He's very ambitious, and I think his ambition and his selfishness goes above literally anything else, any moral, and you see that sort of continue to develop up until the end, where he betrays two people that he supposedly loved or deeply cared about, so he had another chance. Very interesting conflict, especially like written from like, I guess, the villain, I guess. I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and I'm incredibly excited for the film. And you know, I'm sure I had like more thoughts, but like trying to word them thoughts, very difficult. How do people do video essays? Probably they probably write a script rather than writing some terrible notes in a little Trolls notebook that they got for Christmas. It was a joke present before you start. Yeah, I would 100% recommend reading the Hunger Games books. The films are amazing. The books are amazing. Read both. Watch both. Read them and watch them. Enjoy them all, and then you get twice the content. You get to fill in the little gaps. Like, yeah, they're incredibly good, and I'm so glad that I decided to reread them and actually like have decent opinions rather than the opinions of a 10-year-old that I've somewhat. Peter's great. The ending was great. The romance is great. Rip Lucy Gray, I guess. I don't know if she's dead or alive. Nobody knows. That's the whole point. That's the song she was named after. She's a very interesting character, but Snow was so jealous. He was incredibly jealous, judgmental, disgusted, distrusting of her. It was like sort of no one, like he was telling himself he loved her, but he didn't act like he loved her. Not really. His inner thoughts would always betray him. So it was no wonder it ended in disaster. Anyway, I'm glad she survived the games, at least. Very good book. I need to find something else good to read, because anyway, I think I might also film a video talking about the Hunger Games versus Attack on Titan. I think that'd be a pogger's idea, because I love both series and they have a surprising amount of things in common. So let me know if you want to hear that. I'm sorry that you had to listen to my ramblings for the past however long I've been sat here. Yes. So yeah, don't worry. I'm not Team Gale anymore.